So today I wanted to talk a bit about mobility aids when you have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome or hypermobility spectrum disorder. What ones are out there, how to know when you should use them, and what type really is best for you. You might be in support groups online, and it can all be a bit confusing because, if you don't have a consultant or anyone to guide you through these things, it's hard to know when to start using one, and it's always a personal choice. So I suppose for anyone out there, take this all with a pinch of salt. I really just want to introduce you to what is out there. A lot of people with EDS feel they don't need to use any kind of mobility aid, and that's absolutely fine. It depends on your issues. I suppose for me, because of the hip dysplasia that went untreated, the socket's quite shallow, so that dislocates constantly. Because of my issues in regards to that, I started using canes young enough. I was in my 20s, but I started needing to use a cane, and then gradually I built from there. And, it was all a complete whirlwind, really, and I didn't know how to progress on from using a cane. I was like, well, I need support for both sides of my body, but, you feel kind of stupid as well. And there's always that, that thing niggling inside of you when you know you need a mobility aid, but it's hard to bite the bullet and just do it. So I'm going to go through the mobility aids I have and use and what I use them for and how kind of I progressed and how I decided, to start using different ones. I think sometimes healthy people think it's as simple as your doctor telling you, oh, you should try this, you should try that. But often they don't know either. And then you reach a certain age that it's kind of just left up to you. I suppose you know your own body. I would say, though, if you can, get in touch with an occupational therapist. Also to discuss bracing if you have EDS and things like that. And I'll probably do another video on bracing, so I won't get into that today. But definitely, having a physiotherapist and an occupational therapist is really helpful to discuss mobility aids and discuss what other things that you can use around the house. For example, things to open jars and all these little bits and pieces that really you don't know anything about until you need them. So to start off with, as I said, in my 20s, I started to use a cane. I can't remember my exact age. I should have been using it a lot longer than I did. When I started using it, it was such a relief. I was able to walk further and I was in, slightly less pain, and it was such a big help. And I was nervous when I first started using it. No one wants to look like an old person. But it was such a relief to my body that then I was annoyed at myself for not doing it sooner. And I will say that if you have EDS or HSD, you're not the first person to be embarrassed by using a mobility aid, but trust me, everyone will tell you in the support groups and online that they don't regret it. You might feel people are staring at you, especially to begin with, but you won't regret it in the long run. So you just really need to bite the bullet if you need a mobility aid. So I started off just with a simple cane. And, I feel like if you're going to use a cane, like I think I just had a cheap black one to begin with, but if you're going to use a cane, you might as well get something like this or something that you really like. Color-wise, I don't know if you can see that there, but this is like a green kind of tartan. It's a bit like, I suppose it's a bit out there or whatever, but you can get loads of lovely flower designs and things like that. And really, if it's something that you're, as silly as it might sound, really if it's something that you're unsure about because you feel a bit deflated and you feel kind of old, you might as well make it interesting. You might as well personalize it and make it you. You might as well see it as a nice accessory, like if you wouldn't buy a handbag or something that you didn't actually like. So I suppose you could see canes like that, and you mightn't be that confident at first, but trust me, you'll get there. You can always buy black ones and decorate them yourself as well, which sometimes can be a bit cheaper. So you want to go for one, though, that does fold up. And you can get foldy canes in most places if you look online, obviously on Amazon and eBay, but a lot of chemists do them as well. So you mightn't see them in the chemist first of all, but if you ask, sometimes they're behind the counter and stuff. So they're readily available in most places these days. Sometimes even the cheap Euro shops have them. Now they wouldn't be as good quality and sometimes they don't fold. So I would suggest you get a fold one, because then at least if you're out and about and you don't need it and you feel a bit self-conscious, you can fold this up and put it into your bag, or you can, if you have a wheelchair, and a cane, which sometimes you might need. You can fold it up and put it in the side of your chair and things like that. So it's just a lot more practical to get a foldy one, and most of them are foldable and they're really readily available. So the only issue that you might have is within yourself trying to start using a cane. I suppose when to know how to start using one, again, it's completely yourself. I think, you'll know. You just will know, and it'll probably be in your mind for a long time before you get around to doing it. So that's really canes. I mean, in regards to that, I would say get a design that you like and make sure it's a foldy one, because that's just far handier. So then after using the cane then for a few years, I started to realise, well, I actually need support now on both sides. I was getting a lot worse. And instead, of course, I still had the pig-headed thing in my head and the embarrassment. And instead of just admitting to myself that I needed something for both sides, I just went out less. I just walked less. And that's no way to live. If you're a young person, you need a social life. Or if you're an older person, everyone needs a social life, and you need to get out and about, and you can't let things like this stop you. And I suppose that's the way you should see mobility aids. It's not as a bad thing, it's as a positive thing. It gives you freedom. And trust me, that's how you will eventually see things. So I wasn't sure what to go for next in regards of mobility aids. I needed something both sides, and I was torn between either a rollator or smart crutches. Now, a rollator is a type of walker, basically. I'm not sure how you would differentiate between walker and rollator. I assume that the rollator is just classified because it has wheels. So if I show you my rollator here, this has, I don't know if you can see in the lighting there, I'll try and lift it up a little. This has 4 wheels. So that's 4 wheels there. Okay, that's got it, yeah. You can get smaller ones with 3 wheels. You might know the triangular shaped ones. So this is a 4-wheeled one. And I eventually decided to go for this because I was torn between this and some form of crutches, like Smart Crutches, which is a brand. And I kind of wanted the crutches at first because I was thinking younger, hipper, and I was thinking rollator walker. That's, it's still a struggle to go. I don't want to be seen like an 80-year-old. So I was going to go with the crutches at first. And then I was actually talking to the consultant who diagnosed me in Cork, and he said, look, if you're going to get something for both sides, I would actually suggest a rollator. A lot of people with EDS use them, and I think it would be more beneficial to you. And I kind of did know that. So I was torn for a while, and I decided to go with the rollator, and I'm glad I did, because the rollator not only supports me on both sides, like so, it has the seat. So having this seat, because I have the 4-wheeled one, I have a bigger seat. If you have the 3-wheeled in kind of this kind of shape, they usually don't have a seat, or they have a very small seat, but they do fold up easier. That is the only thing I would say. But this one was perfect for me. And I got this actually silly enough, I got it on eBay because I wanted the green colour, and it was very hard to find green. They were all red, blue or black around places, but they're easy enough to get. Usually a lot of towns have, a disability shop. I can't remember the one now locally to me, but they sell all sorts of different kind of like the different types of rollators, different types of like bandages and things that you would need around for the house. So a lot of places like that, if they don't have it in, they can order it in. They'll have a magazine, and there's a few Irish websites as well. But I got this one on eBay, and it wasn't, including postage, actually wasn't that much compared to what you would buy in a shop. I think it was about €80 at the time. Not cheap, not expensive for, I suppose the life it gives me in terms of that. So I went for this design with the 4 wheels so that I would have a bigger seat area. This is important, I think, if you have POTS or another type of dysautonomia or any type of condition where you feel faint and dizzy. This gives me great confidence. I think that was the thing that I took from it as well. It wasn't just mobility this gave me and independence. It was the confidence, I suppose. There's a lot of time if you have a condition like POTS where you're very dizzy and you have to stand in a queue for ages. Even now I'm standing for quite a while, and it can be a bit anxiety, I suppose, because you're just standing there worrying about when is your POTS going to be triggered, when are you going to be so dizzy that you're just going to collapse, because sometimes the fainting can be quite sudden like that, and it's embarrassing and everything else. So having this support, like if I have to stand then in a queue at the post office or something, I know I can just sit down if I need to. Do you know, I can just sit down like that, quite comfortable, and that's really just gives you the kind of the confidence to go out and about your day, and in turn that gives me far more independence than if I was just walking around with a cane. It's a security blanket as well. Another great thing about it as well, my shoulders dislocate a lot, and it's very painful, and I find wearing handbags quite hard. So I do have a lot of small handbags now, or even bum bags, which are kind of trendy now. I don't know, are they? But what I find really helpful, if I have the rollator, this lifts up and I can put my handbag in there, save my shoulders as well. So there's really, countless pluses for a rollator. I'm so happy with it, and I'm glad at the time this is what I chose to get. Now, at some stage between the canes, I've got a few, between the canes, the rollator, and then the next one, but some time between them, I can't remember exactly, but I ended up getting my wheelchair. I think it was because I was going on holidays, or it's one of my holidays that I was going on. I think it might have been before New York. I knew we were going to do a lot of walking. I definitely had it for New York. I wanted to do a lot of walking. I didn't want to go on holidays and end up really unwell. I mean, you've spent all this money on a trip and then you can't walk anywhere, especially in the summer in the heat. Again, if you have POTS, you know what I'm talking about. Heat's a massive trigger for me, for my POTS symptoms, never mind anything to do with EDS. So if you're on holidays, you sometimes might need a wheelchair more so than if you're at home. And at this stage, when I first got the wheelchair, I didn't really need it for at home a lot. Again, I was getting worse with my joints, and sometimes the rollator wasn't enough. But for me, when the rollator wasn't enough, again, I would just stay at home. So, everything kind of went in phases. So then, but mainly the wheelchair was for my holidays, and it was brilliant. I was able to go all around New York. I didn't have to worry about being tired or sick. I didn't have to worry about what if I wake up in New York and I can't get out of bed and go do stuff. Like my holiday would be ruined. It was particularly great for going around the likes of museums. So, you might spend like 2 hours in a museum, and perfect flat ground as well, like in a lot of them. So that was fantastic. So this is my lovely little wheelchair here. Now, this was just a cheap thing I got in Argos at the time. Again, I would say if you have an occupational therapist, they might give you a chair or might give you certain things like this through the HSE. Now, the only thing is that I'd been waiting to get a physio for so long who was meant to be putting me in touch with the occupational therapist. So that took a few years. So at this stage, I still didn't have any occupational therapist. Now, I will say, in fairness, when I did get an occupational therapist only a couple of years ago, one of the first things that they kind of went through with me was, okay, what do you need? And she said, first things first, do you have a wheelchair? So that was good. So that was, there was that acknowledgement there that, okay, you're actually pretty disabled. First things first, do you have a wheelchair? And I think she was almost disappointed that I did because, she was a nice person and she would have wanted to give me one. But I mean, with yourself, a waiting list and everything else, it was a few years too late. So I happily had this wheelchair anyway for the last few years now. Can't remember exactly when I got it, but it was a few years ago. And as you can see, it's pink. I didn't buy it like this. It's a cheap Argos yoke. It's actually a bit of a piece of shit, to be honest. But I spray painted it pink there like a year or so ago, just because, why not? Unfortunately, I'm usually too weak to be able to push myself around in this, so that's where the husband/carer comes in. But I do try to do a little, so if I'm in the shopping centre or stuff, because I like to have the self-propel wheels. As silly as it is, even though I can't really self-propel most of the time, I will go for maybe a couple of minutes in the shopping centre, flat ground, that sort of thing. So this has been another lifeline for me. All my aids have been lifeline. And I don't know, I just wouldn't have any life without them. And even now, I have certain days that I need certain ones. And that's good and that's fine. And then some days I need two. Like I would usually take the cane with me no matter what. So if I have the wheelchair, I'll still bring the cane. Just, because if it's only a little walk, if we're in a restaurant or something, that's fine. So, or if I have the rollator, I can bring the cane and put it in the little bucket thing. Bucket, as my husband calls it, under the seat. So there are the first three that I got. Now, then a few months ago, I'd always been considering, as I said earlier, about getting smart crutches. Smart crutches are basically a type of trough crutches. So if the normal crutches that you would get in the hospital, the usual type, a lot of people with EDS who dislocate will find them very sore in their joints because you're not really supporting the arms properly, and then they're dislocating. So you're trying to help one part of your body and you're hurting another part. Trough crutches are a type of crutch which basically have a trough shape here on the arm, so you're way more supported. And then smart crutches are a brand of trough crutches. So you might have heard of smart crutches before. And as I said earlier, when I first got the rollator, I was thinking of getting smart crutches. But there's pluses and there's negatives of smart crutches. So I'm glad at the time I got the rollator because I would use that more on a day-to-day basis. But there a few months ago, I was kind of thinking I want to be able to do a bit more walking, say on the likes of beaches. Some kind of like rough terrain, if you go into any kind of like forest park, even the disabled access is very stony and bumpy, and there's been times I've tried to do things with the rollator or wheelchair where I'm just like getting sick almost from the pressure over rough terrain, and then I'm using more energy trying to get over that terrain if I'm using the rollator, for instance. So I kind of thought, well, I would really like to, even though they're expensive enough and I can only buy them from the UK, I think it's smartcrutches.co.uk, and you have to pay for the postage to come to Ireland, because as far as I know, I don't think anywhere in Ireland sells them. If they do, I couldn't find out about them anyway. So they're not cheap once you start paying for the postage. I mean, they're not cheap in regards to that I don't use smart crutches every day, and I knew I wouldn't be, but I still thought, you know what? I'm just going to invest in another mobility aid because why not? I don't have a massive house or anything. They take up a lot of space, but I decided to treat myself. So these are the smart crutches. I went for the pink. I have them folded down at the moment because they're quite big. They take up a lot of space. I'll try and get this up. So I went for the pink color. They have several colors, including like purple, blue, I'm trying to remember 1, 2, 3, 4, I think. Because of my finger dislocations, I usually get the husband to do this, so that's not right. I'll try and get this as right as I can. You basically want to feel normal and comfortable and relaxed. So when you get smart crutches, you can see videos on YouTube and you get advice on the website on how exactly you should adjust them and where exactly they should be. So I'll see if that's still pretty low, but I'll just keep it at that now just to show you. So this is right, and then this one is left. So I'll just get this one up and running as well. 1, 2, 3. Ow, 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 ow. 2, 3, 4. Okay. Oh, for goodness sake. So of course this is happening. 1, 2. Okay. So 1, 2. I'm very weak and not very good at this, and if you're like me, you might want to get someone to help you. My hands are like totally unusable, so I'm not able to fix that one. Unfortunately, I should have thought about this earlier. So this is the smart crutch. You can actually buy one, you don't have to buy two. There's that choice on the website. I bought two obviously because I want them for both sides of my body. So that's really the design there. I don't know if you can see it there. This is where you hold on, and this is where you put your arm. Now, you wouldn't be bending down like this. I just don't have it high enough. So it's very comfortable, but the only thing is you feel like an idiot. It looks like I'm skiing. And we actually went on holidays there to Norway, and I brought them with me because, I knew it would be rough terrain there. Very difficult holiday, but absolutely amazing. The only thing is, in all the photos, especially with the snow, I look like I'm skiing. It's insane. But they're very comfortable, And they're surprisingly easy to get used to. So, you're probably used to crutches when you're hopping along and you've broken a leg. So you're using these together and you're walking and you're putting them in conjunction with your legs. So it's kind of like, at first you're like, oh, that's a different rhythm than you're used to with crutches if you break a leg or if you hurt one knee. So you're using these to support both sides of the body and walk in rhythm with them. It's actually surprisingly easy to get used to, I promise. And actually look up YouTube videos, because if you're as clumsy as me, that you'll need that kind of guidance. So they're smart crutches. And I would use them, as I said, in rough terrain. I think, I don't regret at all buying them. But I would, in a day-to-day basis, need far more support than they would give me. They're kind of like my adventure, kind of sporty side when I'm able to do it. And I think that was kind of the thing. It gives me positivity. It gives me that buying them, even if I rarely get a chance to use them, is just knowing that I have that outlet and that I can do more things than I ever maybe thought I would be able to do. Certainly in my adult life and in the last few years. And all my, different mobility aids are special in their own way, and each day is a different day with EDS. I think, you've probably heard me saying on other videos, but that's probably the most annoying part about having EDS or having HSD, is that literally you can wake up one day and not know how you're going to feel from one day to the next. So having all these different mobility aids really gives me far more options and far more choices. Now, it's not something that you just go out and you buy 10 different things. As I said, if you have an occupational therapist or a physio, discuss with them your needs, and be completely honest. Tell them you're in pain, you're having trouble walking. What would they suggest that you get? Talk to, the community as well. Talk in online groups. And, especially if you're buying online, just be careful of different websites and make sure it's not a scam site. So always look for reviews and that kind of thing. And I think that's it, really. If you have any other questions on mobility aids, or if you have any comments, I'd love to hear from you. So, drop a comment in the comment box. Maybe you have one in particular. And do you name your mobility aids as well? I have different... I call this one Polly, because it was kind of like, for my rollator, I was kind of like, I don't know, I think it was like Roly Poly, and then Polly just kind of came out of that. And I call her Saoirse, like just freedom. And I don't have a name for the cane or the smart crutches. Actually, that could be a thing. What should I call my smart crutches? They're relatively new. Yeah, let me know. And let me know if you name yours at all. And any other questions, leave a comment.